Okay, this is video number 4. This is a video on how to do file I/O in Python. So this is how we're going to input our data into the to do our statistics with. So bear with me here. This video can be either short for you or long for you, depending on your interest in Python. So we'll start with going to our files section. And I'll explain more in a second why you can make it a short video or a long video. But we're going to go ahead and go to our Python tutorial notebooks, and we're going to go to there, and we're going to go ahead and grab accessing data. So you're going to download this file, and you can go ahead and download this directory and everything in this directory. Then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put those in. If you go to your computer, C drive, I put my WinPython in program files, and a folder called WinPython into my notebooks, and in 00-intro to Python, this is where I have all my notebooks. So you'll see this one is what we're going to be playing with today, number 04, accessing data. And then I have all the files that I have up on the share and web courses. I've placed in here as well. So go ahead and download all those files and put these into those directories. And when you've done that, go ahead and start your Python, clicking it down here, loaded it. And that'll bring you to this screen here. So this is your Jupyter Notebook screen. And go ahead and launch intro to Python, and then accessing data, IPython notebook. Alright, so if all you're interested in is what you need to know for this particular class, you're only going to care about this cell and this cell. All the stuff here below is just extra stuff, just how to do file I/O in general for Python, but not necessarily for statistics. All we're going to care about for this class is pandas, and pandas has made a nice easy way to read a CSV file, or a comma-separated value file. So we go back to that data directory. If you look up data.csv, if you open it with something like Notepad++ or Notepad or whatever you have, you'll see, I'll install that, not only that now, I'll do that later, but you'll see that you have different things, and they're all separated by commas, and then they have new lines, and then there's a bunch of things separated by commas. And that's what a CSV file is. And if you open it using Excel, it'll put it in a nice table format for you. So this is our data.csv file, and that's in Excel. You saw it in Notepad. And now let's go ahead and import it using pandas. So we're going to import pandas. This line here, import pandas as PD. And then here we're going to create a data frame using pandas read CSV file. And what you're going to, the first object you're going to pass in, now let's actually get rid of this for now. Don't worry about that line. You don't actually need that line right now. But the only object you need to pass into this method here is a string to where your data file is located relative to where this whole notebook that you're running is located. So data.csv is located in, so here's the notebook that we're in. You'll see it's a data folder and then data.csv. So you'll see that's why I have in the string that a data /data.csv. And if we run that, you'll see we have now input the data into a data frame that was the CSV file. Now, what I took out of here a second ago, oops, too many commas, is this index_column equals 0. And what this tells the data frame that you're creating is that you want the 0th column, because it's Python 0 based, so you want the treatment column to be our index column. So if we go ahead and run that, you'll see the difference now. So you see over here you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's our index. Now we have treatment as our index, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll now see your NIs, your X bars, and your S's. So this is how you import data as a CSV file, and this is all we're going to need to know for our class. So if that's all you care about, then go ahead and you can stop the video at this point, because you know how to import data that you care about for this class. If you're interested in Python, the rest of this tutorial is going to cover working with different file types. So how do we open and read files? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a string, and we're going to pass it in the directory / and then the file name that we want to create. This file, we're going to open it using the open method. This is native to Python, so we didn't have to include anything to get this directory. This method. We're going to pass in a file name and then the parameter w, which means this file is writable. Then we're just going to use file writes. So you can just use file.write and you can pass in strings. This \n is a special character that means new line. So it says hello world, then does new line, and then you write out this is a new line. And then you make sure whenever you have an open file, you must close it. Otherwise, it'll remain open and cause problems. So go ahead and run that. So now we should see a test file.txt in our directory. And you'll see it right here. And if I open it up, hello world, this is a new line. If you want to add a third line, \n, this is a third line. Go ahead and run it again, Control Enter. We'll run that, and we'll go ahead and open this up, and you'll see that hello world, this is a new line, this is a third line. So that's how you write simple text files using Python. So that's writing a file, but now how do we read a file? Well, we're going to do the same open command that we did above, but now we're going to pass in the string r as a second parameter, and that means I want to read it. Now, if you do, we'll call it file, to be consistent, file.read, file.close, and we can put the content. So now it's going to go using this file name, which we defined up here. It's going to read it and get all the content and pass it into one object called content, which is a string, and it's going to print the whole content out. And there you go. That's what was in that file. So if you just need to read a file and print it out, this is how you write a file, and this is how you read a file. Now there's different ways to read a file. You can read it line by line. There's the special word with, basically creates a loop. We're opening this file, and we're opening it in read mode like above, and you're using it F. So like the for loop that we saw, you ended in a colon, and then the next line was indented. Until the thing is not indented, that's considered your method body. So this is only one line in there, but this is your method body with this open. And it's going to keep reading lines with this until the content is full and there's no more lines to read, and then it goes ahead and prints it out. And you'll see that it reads it in as an array now, or a list that we learned about. So there's your open square bracket, your closed square bracket, and you've created an array or a list of the individual lines that exist. And this is the syntax to do it that way. And so now you could also do something like print content of 1, which prints the second object, so it should print out just this one, right? And there you go. Or you could print out just the first one. And this gives you an easy way to access the data within your file line by line. And that's an error if you go beyond how many lines there are. So there was only 2, 0, 1, 2. You can't access the third one. And there you go. That's the third line. Now the same syntax using this with open filing with read writes. You're going to for it on each particular line. So this is using the for loop in the exact same syntax we learned last video, using for in f, and your f is your variable that you've defined up here, and your line is your iterating item that's going to be given each time through the loop, the new item in f, and then we print it out. Putting it all together now, we're going to enumerate f, and this is going to give us a line and a line number. On this, you'll see it's going to iterate over line 0, 1, and 2, and then give you the content. And this is the same syntax that I tried to avoid last time because I didn't want to confuse you, so we'll go ahead and change it. We're going to do comma I, comma oops, colon, line, and we don't need to, stripping it just takes off the new line characters and whatnot, but that's what we want to print. Oops, what did I do there? Oh, I didn't put a comma. So each item has to be, so you have a string, comma, int, comma, string, and there you go. And that's what you get. Now, CSV files, and this is the kind that we're going to use for class for our data. This is a raw way of opening up CSV files. Again, we're going to use that same data.csv. We're going to open, just like we did before, with that open statement as any text file. And we're going to use this csv.reader, and we're going to use the delimiter of comma, because that's what a comma separated file would look like. But if you had something that was semicolon separated, you could easily add that, or if it's tab, you can just put a \t, and that's a tab separated file. For now, we know our data is comma separated, so that's the delimiter that we're going to use. And then the first thing is going to give you is the header row. So you're going to create a variable called headers, and you're going to use the next keyword, and that's going to give you the next line as a CSV item, or as a comma separated value item. Then we're going to print out the headers, and then we're going to go through the data reader that we've created and print all the rest of the lines out of it. So let's go ahead and get that. See their headers are there as a list, and then each row in our CSV is another list that you can access. And this is how you'll be able to access the individual data. But the nice thing about using pandas is it actually puts it into a data frame for you. Here you just have a list of lists, and it's harder to work with it this way, but you can using NumPy or some of the other libraries like SciPy or something like that, if you just need a quick list to iterate over. Okay, this is the same thing, but we don't have a header row. If we didn't have a headers row, and this file we did, but now this is a data file with no headers. You'll see this one looks different because it doesn't have a header. So this one does have a header, but now we're defining a variable called data, which is going to be the list of list items. So if that makes sense. There you go. So our data object that we printed out here is the list of items, and it's got the header and then the value in it. The header item and its value, and that's how each dictionary is set up. So data is a list containing a bunch of dictionaries, and each row of the cell, or each row of the CSV file, is its own dictionary item with a key value pair. JSON, or JavaScript object notation, is another common form of data you'll find on the internet. It's a very lightweight way of describing data, and there's easy libraries on how to load JSON files in Python. So now we have a file called movies.json. If you go over here, you'll see that we have movies.json. I'll open it up in Notepad just so you can see what the syntax looks like. But it starts with a curly bracket, ends with a curly bracket, and inside you have key, colon, value, and then new lines are done by commas. And then this is how you get a list inside of JSON. So let's look what this object looks like when we load it into Python. There you go. It loaded the actors, and then it did a list of the 3 different actors that were defined there. Then it loaded a title. Did you watch it? A Boolean value, and then the year it was published. And so that's just using JSON.loads, and you give it a string. So this is importing JSON, which is a library that you have to include if you want to do this fancy loading of JSON content. So this is a different way of loading it. So you see this formatting where you create the file open, same thing you do here, but here we created a variable called content and passed in the reader of the file. Here we just passed in the file itself. But you'll see that either method is identical. So our movie variable that we created this way and our alternative movie created this way gives you identical results. That's what double equals means, is it's checking comparison between two objects to see if they're the same. And this JSON also has a nice feature called dumps, and that's how it dumps out the JSON content. And it creates an indent level of 4. You can change that however you want to do, but that's how it formats the output. Most people use 4 spaces. Some people use 2, and that just programming convention. Some people use tabs, some people use spaces. I typically stick with spaces, and I typically stick with 4 spaces myself. So most programmers are very opinionated on that. I'm not so much opinionated on it, but I do have a preference for myself to use 4 spaces. And then there's other different types of data. Pickles is another type that they use. It's pretty similar. Where's the data? It's probably a binary version of it because you can't read it this way, but it's a format that's easily opened in Python. I should set that one up. This is the same thing we did before with the JSON loads, and here's how we're going to load Pickles data. And we're going to still use this is the same file. This is Pickle data. And it's the same format, but if you look at file type, well, they're about the same file type and size. But Pickles, I think, is encoded, so it's a smaller file type when you have large data. And that's it for data I/O. Again, for this class, we're going to stick with pretty much loading in using pandas and creating data frames. So DF, we're going to call it data frame, and it's PD, which is short for pandas, .read CSV, a relative path to your data file, and then if you have a particular column that is your index, you would set call index equal to whatever column that is. If you exclude it, no big deal, because it creates a zero-based index column automatically, so it'll go 0 through the number of rows that you have. And that's it.